As the #1 Crystal player on PvPLegacy, I've been asked by many new Crystal players to train them, and I turned almost all of them away, because this gets excessive. But with a 100 win streak under my belt, I wanted to create something that could help every single new Crystal player start out. This guide is designed to give you all the tools you need to advance your skills. Before we consider gameplay that looks like this, we have to start at the basics. See, explosion damage starts at the player's feet, therefore an explosion next to your head does almost nothing, but next to your legs it's super effective, so hitting your opponent into the air is ideal. Anchors do slightly less damage than crystals, but this doesn't really impact the game much. It's best not to think of one as better or worse, they just have different use cases. And both of them belong in your hotbar at all times, along with these items. This slot here, it's best to think of as a miscellaneous or a wildcard slot. If you want to swap out for anything else, like say XP, shield, pickaxe, mace, axe, or even another totem, then this is the slot that you would use. The next thing I want to go over is hit crystalling, D-tapping, and pro flashing. All three of these things kind of go together. You need to learn how to hit crystal, to learn how to D-tap, and you need to learn how to pro flash in order to avoid getting hit crystalled.
And then you can be really fancy and put all three together. Pro flashing is the easiest to understand. Every time you take damage in this game, you flash red for 500 MS. This window of time is called iframes, short for invincibility frames. During this time, you are invincible, and cannot take KB from a second source of damage. So by throwing a pearl just before you predict you will be hit, you can negate KB. If your opponent doesn't do anything to protect themselves, this typically gives you a great window of time to attack them. This brings us to hit crystalling.
Didn't I say that when you're flashing red, you're both invincible and unable to take KB? Then how does this move work? Well, it's because of all these asterisks. More specifically, what it does is it makes you invincible to all forms of damage unless a greater source of damage than the initial source of damage comes along. Then it replaces the smaller damage source with the larger damage source.
Hit crystalling comes in several forms, with 5 levels of difficulty. You gotta start by mastering lower levels before you move on to the harder ones. Going from level 2 to 3 in particular requires solid hockey speed and a lot of practice. In fact, I've never seen anyone successfully pull off a level 3 in fewer than 50 attempts. Except for Logbang. Now on to D-tapping. How does this move work? Well, we can use what we already know about iframes in order to abuse it in order to create 2 sources of damage that are incredibly powerful right next to each other. Here's how it works. Sure, the damage timer makes iframes last exactly 500 MS, but what happens if we have a sword hit right at the beginning, and then right before you stop flashing red, a second source of damage comes along, a crystal, and then right after you stop flashing red, another crystal comes along. The idea is that you can have this distance here be really tiny, like 1 or 2 ticks. Let's take a closer look at one of these close to 4. If you play it again and slow it down, you'll notice that the first crystal goes off while you're still flashing red, there's a brief period where you're not flashing red, and then I hit the crystal and kill them. I really think this point is important, so I'm going to go over it again with a different example. Here, I throw a pearl, and then I hit them with the sword. As soon as I hit them with the sword, it starts a 500 MS counter. In 500 MS, they will stop flashing red. That does not change just because the second source of damage came along. The second source of damage came along, which is bigger than the initial source of damage. The crystal deals more damage than the sword, and so it replaces the sword damage with the crystal damage. And then for a brief moment, they stop flashing red. That's because the 500 MS timer that started with the sword hit is now run out. As soon as they stop flashing red, I hit them with another crystal, and because the first one popped their totem, the second one killed them. This brings us on to the next thing that I want to discuss, hotkeys. If you look at the same clip that we just looked at, you'll notice that the hotkey speed is insane. You cannot realistically do this with default 1 through 9 hotkeys, and so I'm going to show you what the best hotkeys in my opinion are, and a little bit of the science to determine what hotkeys should work best for you. Now, when it comes to deciding good hotkeys, there are 2 major factors that I consider. 1, how close is it to my hand, and 2, what finger do I press it with? That is going to come up later, because if you press different hotkeys with different fingers, that'll allow you to quickly alternate between 2 specific ones. Some people use ESDF, but if this right here is what your control scheme is, your best hotkeys are going to be these keys. And as for tab and Q, tab being the tab menu and Q being drop, think about it. Q. Many players drop their sword. It is not an uncommon thing for somebody to press W, miss it, and press Q. It is a bad thing to have your drop key bound to Q. I will die on that hill. My drop key used to be Y when I was playing Skyblock. And as for the tab menu, what was the last time you really needed to open tab as fast as humanly possible? Tab is an amazing hotkey. You should dedicate that to something important. And caps lock, that's going to change your case. So why would you want to use that? Well, some people can rebind caps lock to be something else in their keyboard software, and I'd recommend you do it. Caps lock is an amazing hotkey. How often do you need to change your case, really? I have that bound to insert. Let's say, hypothetically, that you don't want to use your keyboard software for whatever reason, or you're unable to use your keyboard software in order to rebind a key. What you can use right here is Power Toys. Go to the Keyboard Manager, and you can rebind keys to be different keys. This is actually a program that's made by Microsoft themselves, and I've been using it for years. And now the aforementioned science from before. The idea is that if you press... And now the aforementioned science in order to determine what the best hotkeys are. The idea is that you determine two things that you alternate between that back and forth really, really quick with. For example, anchors and glowstone. I press my anchor hotkey and I press my glowstone hotkey with two different fingers, and that allows you to alternate back and forth really, really, really fast. Two keys that are pressed with the same finger, for example, would be sword and anchor, and I can't much go faster than this. The most important ones to be able to switch from would be sword to obsidian, obsidian to crystal, anchor to glowstone, glowstone to totem.
At this point, we've gone over almost everything necessary to go from low tier 5 to high tier 4, except for one thing, anchors. Anchors are inert until you charge them. You only need to charge them once, it lets you charge it up to 4 times. After you charge it, you switch to any other slot and click it to blow it up. A few fancy moves you can do with it are safe anchor, digging, just go into the corner easily, and double anchor. The absolute last thing I want to cover before I let y'all go is retoteming. A really important part of the game is switching to your main hand totem whenever you either need to open your inventory or you think you're going to pop. Doing this allows you to survive D-taps. The next thing that you can do is you can replace totems that are near the center of your screen with other totems that are far away. This allows you to quickly retotem in critical cases.